Okay, so Simone Wright, thank you so much for being a part of the Breaking Through the Void Summit. I am absolutely delighted that you are here today to talk to us. So if I may, I would just like to read a little bit about your biography for people that may not have come across you yet.
Sure.
It's actually an incredible bio by anyone's standards, and
I'm so fancy.
And I think, I must share it. So let me read through that. So,
yes.
So Simone Wright, you are an internationally respected expert on the power of the human mind and its massive potential for evolutionary intelligence and groundbreaking ingenuity. You are a highly respected intuitive consultant, entrepreneur, and award-winning artist. And you have successfully used your dynamic intuitive skills to assist in police investigations, missing children's cases, and corporate business strategies. Your client list includes top achievers and emerging talents in specialties from law enforcement, entertainment, CEOs, and entrepreneurs who all benefit from your unique perspective to assist them in hearing their own intuitive intelligence and recognizing their highest potential. And you are the author of First Intelligence, Using the Science and Spirit of Intuition.
This is true. All of it is true.
Fantastic. And I have to say, I've had a look at some of your artworks, and they are incredible. Absolutely incredible. Your starscapes just blew me away.
Thanks.
And I love, and especially for me, I love the universe, and I have got photographs up of the Hubble. And so when I saw your pictures, they were literally just like the real thing, and they were magnificent. So
thank you.
Yeah, one day I may have one, or a print of one, I think, hanging on my wall. They really are.
Well, and those paintings are sort of an example of what we're going to be talking about today. As you navigate more from your soul, the things that come out of you are in alignment with that. So thank you for the acknowledgement, but it is certainly a manifestation of the work that we're going to talk about today.
Oh, do you know what? That's fascinating, and I can't wait to hear that because as I've grown, I never thought I had creative talents. And in the last probably the last year, I've started to make sculptures and I do wood turning from natural materials. So I make things from driftwood and just pieces that I find. And it's been the most amazing thing, to tap into that creativity. And it's really one of the things that I think we all need to be doing to break out of the void. That's so important to just be in the space where those things can come, and it's like I say, I'm really interested to hear what you have to say about it, about how that comes in when you find yourself, really, and the
absolutely
that you get along the way.
Yes, absolutely.
Good. Well, let's get started. So your topic is initiation, walking the mystical path from self to soul, which in itself sounds amazingly interesting. So what is the initiatory path? And how is the authentic process different from what we might be learning in the current spiritual age?
Well, just to give a little tweaky of a little bit more background for me. So in addition to everything that you mentioned in my bio, yes, I teach intuition, but I am also an esoteric teacher. I teach alchemy. I teach metaphysics. I have sort of a broad foundation of teaching protocols. And so the initiation process sort of emerged out of, I've been teaching intuition for over 10 years now. And the initiatory process sort of emerged as my own knowledge and understanding grew. And I started to see and hear things out there sort of in the New Age spiritual community that I felt were limiting us as spiritual adventurers. And I like to call all of us on the spiritual path spiritual adventurers, because you really do have to sort of strap yourself in and brace yourself if you're doing it in any sort of meaningful way. And what I noticed was that the initiatory process where we move from self, our limitations of our little skin suit and our personality of Simone or Julia or Bob or Jenny, that is constructed by and shaped by the people around us, our family and society and culture and entertainment, is very limited. It's an artificial physical construct. It's not real. It's not our authentic nature. And as I was teaching more and more intuition, I was starting to see where people were getting sort of cramped by sort of some of the new age ideas that you only have to vibrate high. If you want to be spiritual, you always have to be happy. You've always got to be positive, and only the light has any sort of benefit. And I was, I've had mystical experiences my whole life. The first one I can remember, I was 6 years old, and raised in Catholic church, and just seeing things that weren't feeling like the truth. And I would get in trouble as a child because I was cheeky with the priests and the nuns. And so I would be in detention a lot because I'd be like, that's not right. That's what you're saying is not right. So I would get in trouble. And I was seeing it a lot too in sort of the new age spiritual practices that were convincing us that we had to be a certain way, behave a certain way, talk a certain way, feel a certain way, vibrate a certain way in order for us to have authentic spiritual power. And the initiatory path, I sort of discovered through my own work, from walking the mystical path from self to soul, is the process of breaking apart the physical constructs of self that are shaped in polarity, that are shaped in this three-dimensional world of light and dark, up and down, masculine and feminine, positive and negative electrical charge, etc. Using that world of polarity that we've chosen to drop ourselves into, recognize its essential nature. We need polarity. We need light and dark. We need masculine and feminine. And so being able to use that polarity world to break through it and navigate it and map it so that we can center ourselves in the position point of soul. We can use everything that's around us as self and milk all of the living marrow out of it, break apart the constructs, and that opens a door so that soul can emerge. And then when we've connected with soul, we open like a portal so that like source energy, and I'm not saying portal like in the, you know what I mean? Yeah. You can open a doorway so that source energy, then our higher self, true wisdom, can start to flow. Yeah. And so the initiatory path, what I try to do as a mystical teacher, as an esoteric teacher, is I try to break apart some of the misconceptions of the new age that are getting us into trouble and keeping us stuck, and say, all right, we're going to use polarity. We're going to use the light and the dark. We're not just going to hang over here in the high vibrating buzzy stuff, because that kinks our energetic hose, if you will, to source energy. It actually causes more problems than it solves. And so the initiatory path can be quite challenging, because not only are we breaking apart conditionings from friends, family, ancestry, DNA, etc., and conditioning, but we're also having to sort of break through some of these misconceptions of the new age. And so the initiatory path is challenging, it's rewarding, it's something that you commit to for the rest of your life. And when you start to figure out and build momentum on it, you start to gain access to that higher self. You start to step into the wisdom stream of the authentic soul, and develop skills like intuition and vision and all those sorts of gifts that we want to develop on this spiritual path. So it's a long, convoluted answer to a short question, but it's a really rich mystical process that we start to build really powerful spiritual muscles along the way. And you only develop muscles by practicing and strengthening them, by building heavy stuff, by lifting heavy stuff, right? Yeah. And the spiritual path is no different.
Yeah. That's so interesting as well, what you were saying about how there's this misconception that we need to be just behaving a certain way, and how we must reach those higher vibrations and meditate all the time, and nothing gets us out of our center and stuff like that. And you're right, but if we focus on that, then if we're not attaining it, then we just beat ourselves up and we think we're not doing well, and we don't see the value and the lessons that we get from the whole richness of experience of life. Mm-hmm. We're kind of missing the point, aren't we? If we're not experiencing it as we could.
Right. And if you've got the little diagram that I sent you, Julia, if there's any way you can pop that up so the folks on the call can see it, it sort of explains the initiatory path from self to soul. So if you're looking at this diagram here, you can see initiation. This is the path from self to soul. Yeah. So there's 3 circles here. The bottom circle at the very bottom is self. It's polarity. It's where we land in the three-dimensional world. It is the construct of our being that is polarized, literally light and dark, masculine and feminine, positive electrical charge, negative electrical charge, all of the things that we're told in the New Age that we're only supposed to hang out in the light and we're supposed to completely at all costs avoid the dark or the shadow. And the shadow, when you walk the initiatory path, is one of the most powerful allies you'll ever have. But so self is situated hardcore in that diagram of polarity. And it, as mystics, as initiates, our goal, our vision is to be able to use polarity so that we can move up in this diagram into that center circle, which is soul, which, if you notice, is a cross, which is a balance of polarity, where all polarity, light and dark, up and down, masculine and feminine, has been integrated, mapped, meaning experienced, felt, sensed, and processed, so that we are able, through our soul, to land in the very intersection at the center of that circle. That center circle is the diagram for soul, where when we are in a position point of power, if you think of the line that goes vertically up and down, that's the line of spirit. And if you think of the line that goes horizontally across, that's the line of matter. And so where spirit and matter intersect in the very middle is where our soul has its greatest ability to serve us. And then when we start to deepen our relationship with our soul from that position point of, and the energies that I like to use at the intersection of that is peace, P-E-A-C-E, is the horizontal line of matter. And power is the vertical line of spirit. So at this intersection of peace and power, at the intersection of masculine and feminine, at the intersection of matter and spirit, is where our soul comes online and says, ha, kid, let's come online. Let's really do what we came here to do. Let's do what we're really called to heal and transform. And so when you can sit in that circle of soul, then the top little circle at the top of this equation is the esoteric and mystical diagram for the sun. And the sun in our three-dimensional world is the physical manifestation of source energy. It is the light. It is the thing that gives life to everything on the planet, even in the darkest abysses of the sea and out into the stars. It is the source of light. And so when we can center ourselves at the center point of peace and power, masculine, feminine, light and dark, and we have greater direct access to source energy that is manifested as the sun. And so walking this path from self, these polarities, into soul to gain greater access to source is the initiatory path. And so our job, our goal as mystics, as initiates in this current age, especially as things are going so crazy out there in the world today, it's like, oh my gosh, the world is so polarized. And if we can, and it's not a bad thing if you're looking at it as a mystic, as an esotericist, as a metaphysician, you can look at the world in its completely polarized nature and go, how can I use that? What is the underlying energy of what's going on around me that will serve me so that I can navigate out of self and into soul? And it's a really ripe time for transformation. So this process from self to soul to sun, it takes years, but it is joyful when you figure it out, and it is really rewarding when you start to master it. And it really, once you start to walk this path, you start to remember who you really are as a soul. But you use your life, you use polarity to navigate yourself out. I say self is shaped by polarity, and soul emerges out of it. And so it's essential. So these are the stages of the initiatory path. And when we figure it out, that's when our gifts of authentic intuition, authentic power, authentic connection, authentic relationship to source energy really come online in a meaningful way.
So that's fascinating. And as you were talking, I got the sense, and I hope I've interpreted this correctly, of like a pendulum swinging, and how, and that's the self, you know, the light and dark, the chaos that comes and goes, and that the soul is the bit that's in the middle, that's always there, and the stuff's swinging through. And if we can sit in that place and kind of, I guess, be with what is, you know, I mean, the thing is, we have to interact with it. Some things we have to deal with, you know, there's no getting away from that. I think there's sometimes an argument, isn't there, that we could be so spiritual that nothing bothers us and we never need to take action, and that's not the case. But is it right that you're coming from that place of the soul where stuff can swing in and it can swing out, but you're in that center, and from there you can see the big picture.
Yes.
React or not react.
Yes. Yes. It's I mean, and that analogy of the pendulum is exactly what I teach, in that in the polarized world, in the three-dimensional world where there is good and bad and light and dark and all of that other stuff.
Yeah.
If you just imagine the swing of a pendulum, the position point of power where all of that energy is situated is the still point at the top of the pendulum, right?
Yes.
If that still point at the top of the pendulum didn't exist, then there would be no energy to move. And so the position point of power at the top is the soul. And so when you're coming from that position point of peace and power at the top, now peace is self-evident. It means to be coherent and aware. And when you're peaceful, when you're in a position point of peace, which is in that center point of that little target of the initiation diagram, your perception, your ability to see and perceive expands, right? When you're in survival mode, when you're freaked out and you're swinging back and forth, then your perception goes, eek, it tightens. And so your ability to actually perceive what is truly authentically going on around you gets constricted. So peace is that ability to be in that position point of coherence. Power is the ability to move and direct and shape energy. When we're talking about the initiatory path, power isn't power over somebody or power over something. Power, as we speak of it, is the ability to move energy, the ability to take energy from source, shape it, move it, and direct it. Yeah. And then as you spoke to the ability to, when things happen in that swing of life, as initiates, if we're coming from that position point of peace and power, we have greater ability to respond versus react, right? So many people react. Something comes up and poof, they go automatically into their old conditionings. They react. There's no ability to respond. To respond means to be able to behave responsibly in an environment and be able to say, what is going on here from that position point of peace and power? What is the underlying energy going on here? What is the appropriate action for me to take or not to take at this time? What do I do so that I can navigate forward through this dynamic? So you're not just sitting there going, well, the universe must want me to have this or must not want me to have this, or this is the universe's choice for me. No, no, no. As initiates, we choose what we want our destiny to be. We choose where we want to go. We choose if we want to heal. We choose very powerfully what we want to create in our life. We put our hands on the wheel of our initiatory path and we say, this is where I'm going. And if I'm coming from this position point of soul, of peace and power, then the universal intelligence will align with me. I'll have greater access to the resources there so that then I can move forward with greater clarity, peace, and power. But I love that you were able to catch the distinction of the pendulum. And it's also a symbol of the high priest or the high priestess in esoteric practices. But the high priest, the high priestess, of whom Jesus, the mystical Christed one, was a high priest. Buddha was a high priest. Kuan Yin was a high priestess. Isis was a high priestess. All of these mystical power people position themselves at that intersection of peace and power. And so isn't it interesting that there are so many symbols around the world of crosses, whether it's a Christian cross, an Egyptian ankh, all the Celtic crosses that we see, the symbol of the cross is not a Christian one. It's an esoteric one that shows us the intersection of the soul. And it's all over culture. And so if we can position ourselves at that center point of soul, while the world is swinging around us, then we'll have access to our higher self to help us move through whatever shows up. So we can respond from a place of wisdom as opposed to reacting from a place of limited self.
And that reaction versus response is such a big thing, isn't it? That I think once you've experienced it and seen the difference, that's always a real penny drop moment that you say, oh, okay. And I know with my own work with clients, people say, well, when we sort of talk, when I talk about not reaction or just taking a step back, so you just got a space between stimulus and response to see. And then they say, well, but I have to deal with it, and it's just sort of saying, yes, you do, but it's so critical to understand that reaction comes from a different place, and that where your focus is narrowed, and response is really the highest response that you can do in the moment, based on who you are and what you've got and what's going on around you, and it's such a powerful thing, isn't it? Response.
It is, and the soul has the ability to respond. The self reacts. The self reacts from its conditioning. You can't judge the self. You don't want to judge yourself. You don't want to be wagging your finger at yourself and saying, oh, I shouldn't have done that. And it's like, all right, that's my conditioning. All right, that's what I've been trained to do as a personality in this environment. And so as you start to walk this initiatory path, what happens is as you recognize, and it feels different, doesn't it? Response, when you're coming from that position point of peace and power, it has a different tone. Like it feels. So when I teach intuition, I say intuition is the voice of our soul as it comes through our higher self. When you're getting intuitive direction, it comes from that position point of peace and power. It's very neutral. It's still powerful and direct, but it's very neutral. There's no electrical charge to it. And so what you'll start to notice as you navigate from self to soul is it feels different. It's like, wow, I feel like I'm so much more clear, even though the circumstance is still the same. Even though there's still the pipes have burst in my kitchen, I'm able to come to that scenario from this greater position point of power and not go, oh, well, the universe must want my kitchen to flood. No. In this position point of what is the wisest choice for me to make at this time, and to be guided then from that higher self and say, okay, do this first, do this second, do this third, et cetera, and then you can take that clarity and apply it to your money, to your career, to your health, to your relationships, to whatever it is that you're creating in the world, and be in alignment with the soul and that higher wisdom that comes through source energy. It feels different. So I encourage everybody out there right now, as you're going out and about in the world, reflect on the times when you know you've been reactive, where you've been, coming from your old patterning. And then look too as well at those times when it's been, man, I was so in the flow there. Stuff was going haywire around me, but I was so centered, and start to really differentiate those two frequencies, if you will. And when you recognize yourself falling into the old patterns of reaction where you're coming from limited self, just catch it and watch it. Don't try to swing into higher vibration or anything else. Just watch it. And as you watch it, it will start to automatically lose its charge and neutralize. And then you'll be able to make actions, take choice, make choices, take actions from there.
No, that's absolutely true. And as I was listening to you talking there as well, it's I know from my perspective, I know when I'm reacting because I'm in doing mode rather than being mode, and I'm I can see that my mind's engaged and I'm desperately trying to find a solution, whereas I'm not sitting back and then just saying, okay, what is the solution here? And that just innate wisdom that's always there, isn't it? When you've just got the time to hear it, we'll say, well, you need to do this. And afterwards you think, that's so obvious. Why did I not see it? Because you were doing, you were just reacting.
Right. And that speaks to the idea of perception, right? When you're in the white knuckling of things, your perception gets limited. But when you reestablish yourself in that intersection of peace and power, the soul, then perception starts to open. And then you go, oh my gosh, the solution was right there the whole time. Now, having said that, the solutions won't always be something that you're innately comfortable with. It might be something that is really going to call you to grow. Might be something that calls you to have greater courage. It might call you to let go of something that you know is limiting you. It's the direction from our soul will often, it will use the path of least resistance as one mode where stuff is just synchronistically boom, boom, boom. It drops into our lap. It's like, that was easy peasy. I know I was in the flow. That's one way that it'll communicate with us. But the other way is that it'll use the path of highest good. And that path of highest good is the part that challenges us to let go of the limitations of self, that says, all right, we can be more courageous here. We can step out of our comfort zone here. We can really be innovative here. And that's when we start to grow into who our authentic true nature is, when we let go of those old limiting constructs of self. And also, being is important, absolutely. But doing, if you're being at that center point of that soul, that's your being first. Hi, Lily. That's being first. And then doing is an outcropping of that.
Yes.
So, right? Your doing comes as a result of that being nature. And then your doing then shapes your relationships and the people you partner with and the people you marry and the people who you have friends around you. So being, doing, and partnership, community, fellowship become a part of this equation.
Yeah. And just picking up on something you said there about, because I think that's absolutely pertinent to what the summit's all about, as you were saying about how, sometimes you end up on the right response is being on this uncomfortable path that you said, challenges you, makes you feel uncomfortable and can often feel not very pleasant, because it's scary and it's out of your comfort zone, it's out of what you're used to. And yet that's really the way that, in terms of the conference, what we're looking at here in breaking through the void, that's exactly, isn't it, when you get the opportunity to take a real leap forward. And if you don't push through that, and if you don't think, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to try it out, even if it fails, whatever, then you are stuck. You remain in that place, and then that's when you feel rudderless and directionless, and there's something else, but that's that. You just left them with the place that you don't want to be in,
Yes. And I call that position navigating the in-between, right. where you're not quite where the vision is. And so it feels very daunting, and there are challenges, and you think, oh my gosh, this isn't happening really easy. So again, the universe must not want me to do it because this happened and this happened and this happened. And this is where the power of the initiate comes online in a really meaningful way. Because the ability to choose is a mystical tool. It's an esoteric tool. It is the gift of the mystical mother, the conscious mind, the ability to intend, to declare, to decree, to command, to say, I don't know how, but come hell or high water, I'm getting there. I'm doing that. And when you commit with that degree of intent isn't a soft, fluffy, peanut butter and daisies kind of energy. If it's done correctly, it is powerful. Yeah. And it is the ability of the mystical mother, to the conscious mind, to choose out of any sort of potential in the entire universal list of potentials, to say, this is where I'm going. And then the subconscious mind comes online if we're consistent with it, and we say, okay, I got a flat tire, I'll change it, I'll respond appropriately, and I'll keep going. Oh, I ran out of gas. All right, I'll respond appropriately, I'll keep going. And so what happens then is the subconscious mind starts to come online in a meaningful way. So source energy is always saying yes to us, right? Any potential that exists is possible for us. Source energy, the superconscious mind, is always saying yes. Our conscious mind gets to decide what it says yes to. But if it has a goal or an outcome that it wants, it must say yes. And then those two levels of mind then shape the subconscious mind, which is the mystical child. And so when all three of those levels of mind are aligned to say yes, then the path of initiation moves forward. And you still may have to climb over some mountains or go around some ravines or navigate in a way, but if those three levels of mind are all in alignment and agreement, then that is when reality starts to shift. And that is often the challenge in the initiatory path, because breaking those old patterns of the child, the mystical child, the subconscious mind, is what really requires the most muscle from us on the initiatory path.
So we've talked with the diagram about light and shadow, and you said how that's essential to the process in terms of our evolution. I was thinking, can you give an example of that, just so that people can relate to that and see how it might be for them?
Sure. So an example of using shadow, is that what you want?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll give you an example from my own life.
Yeah.
Okay. So about 12 years ago now, I was getting ready to die. I was on death's door. I was sick as a dog. Couldn't hold a paintbrush. And as Julia mentioned, I'm an artist, so it makes it kind of challenging to earn a living if you don't have enough energy to pick up a paintbrush. My body was shutting down. All of the hair in my head was falling out. I had big black circles under my eyes. And I had a benign cancerous tumor removed from my right breast a couple of years earlier. And it came back. And it came back in the exact same spot. It was twice the size as it was the first time they cut it out. And I was getting ready to die. My friends were concerned about me. They're like, we need to get you to the ER. And I'm like, but no, I'm so spiritual. This shouldn't be a problem, blah, blah, blah. And I crawled into bed one day and I was pissed off. And I was really angry at source energy, whomever was out there, because my body was betraying me. And it had always been very, very healthy and strong. I'd been an athlete my whole life. And I got angry. I got really angry that this betrayal was occurring. And I was using my intuitive skills. I wasn't even doing it deliberately. It happened quite spontaneously. But I got angry. And I said to my guides, or whomever, whatever it is you want to call it, I was so pissed off that I was so sick and couldn't function that I got mad. And I said, whoever's listening out there, you tell me what to do. Show me what to do. This is intent, conscious mind. Show me what to do or take me out. Like, I was so angry. I was so pissed off, but excuse my language.
Yeah.
But I was like, either show me what to do or take me out, because this is, excuse my language, this is bullshit.
Yeah.
This is not okay. And tell me what to do, fix me or take me out, because I don't want to do this anymore. So there's anger, there's shadow, anger, moving. And very clearly I heard, give us your rage. And that was a message from my soul. Give us. So soul is integrated masculine and feminine. Yeah. So it's us. It's dual. Give us your rage. And I listened to that for a moment and I said, what? Because I had never been taught in self that rage or anger of any kind was okay. I was conditioned as a young child, as most of us are, especially as women, that it's not okay to have any sort of connection with this shadow of anger. And it had got amplified to such a degree that this message said, give us your rage. And so I sat with that for a second and I said, I don't know how to do rage. that's never been okay with me. So I started to cry. And the little voice said, no, sadness is easy for you. Sadness, you can cry at an apple juice commercial. Sadness is easy. We asked you for your rage. And I thought, I don't know how to do that. And so for a moment, I pulled the pillow. I was in bed and I pulled a pillow over my head and I just sort of pretended to half-ass scream into the pillow. I'm like, this is so stupid. But eventually something caught. It was like a fish on a hook, and the energy caught it. And I felt this, and I just started to scream into the pillow. Something else took over.
Yeah.
And this energy of I didn't know what I was screaming about. I just let it move. And as I did this, my body started to sweat. It wasn't even water, it was oil. And my body got really hot. And I started to see little visions, memories in my mind flash of a situation where I was abused at the age of 6 by a family member. And I start to see these little visions. And I wasn't reliving the experience at all. They were just popping into my vision so that I could see them. And it was this abuse from this family member at the age of 6. And I watched it and I had conversations, and it was me outside. It was me witnessing it, my soul watching the self have this experience. And the experience lasted about 20 minutes. Eventually the energy of rage dissipated. It just completely mellowed out. It completely stopped. And I passed out. I fell asleep. And I woke up the next morning, still coated in this layer of sweat and oil, still pissed off because I'm like, I'm still here, not acknowledging anything of what had just transpired the night before. And I reached up under my shirt to feel the lump in my breast, and it was gone. It was completely gone. And it was the size of an apricot the day before. And it was completely gone, to the point where I reached to the other side of it, to get the wrong boob, it's gone. And then within 2 weeks, my health was completely restored. All of my energy came back. Doctors had no idea what transpired. But it was the ability to look at what was going on in my world, health, and really face what I was feeling about it. And really being able to go into the shadow of it, to be able to look at my rage and feel the rage, and all of the rage that was stored up as a youngster who had been abused, who wasn't allowed to express anything, had gotten pulled into self, stuffed, and then was manifesting as disease. And so it was only by going into shadow to really look at it and face it, that the energy that was carried within shadow, that was working so hard to hold that construct together, was blown open. And then all of the energy that was freed automatically, instantly went back into my body and broke apart the physical constructs in the breast and whatever the limitations were in my body that was sucking the life force out of me. And the lump has never since returned. It's never returned. So now when I experience anything that would be deemed as shadow, whether it's a feeling of sadness, I dive into it. I feel it. I go, what is the underlying energy here? What is the message here? And I allow it to express. And I can look at if there's a block in my career, if the trajectory isn't, if it feels like there's some sort of turbulence or stuckness there, I look right at it and I go, what is the underlying energy here? And you dive straight into it and you get intimate with that shadow, and you allow the energy that's carried there to move, to be released. And you'll find that you have a breakthrough. You have a breakthrough. So I say to all of my clients and people that I teach and coach, I say, use what life is showing you. Because whatever life is showing you, whether it's in the light polarity or the dark one, there's wisdom there, there's energy carried there that you can use if you're brave enough, and it'll propel you forward. Because I could have heard that direction from soul that said, give us your rage, and been like, well, no, I'm too spiritual. That's going to attract bad things. But nothing would have shifted.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that scenario, that experience of instant miraculous healing, really, instant manifestation of a healing, has shaped everything moving forward. And that's what really caught my attention about what we were being taught in the spiritual New Age practice, because if I hadn't dove into shadow, I'd be dead. I'm convinced of it. I would be dead today. And so it really sort of made me do a complete 180 to go, all right, there's because I'd been conditioned from a child, and many of us have been, to be happy and sweet and loving and kind and tender, and don't be angry and don't be rude and don't speak your truth. And we're being asked to do that now in our spiritual conditioning now too. And so I saw that diving into shadow as me being able to really use the energies that were carried within me. And so if you can convert your shadow, let's say you've got an angry shadow, and bring it into the light, you're not converting it, you're not changing it into a happy, loving, blissful shadow. It's still your angry shadow, but it's brought into the light so that it can serve you. You know, a light, angry shadow will propel you forward. It'll say, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm moving, right? And so look at whatever's going on in your world, position yourself in that position point of peace and power, look at the situation, and then ask, what is the underlying energy going on here? And then dive straight into it, call it forward, and it will teach you.
Wow, thank you. That was such an amazing story, and thank you so much for sharing that. And you know, for me, real life examples like that often just really, really, really bring the subject alive. And now I'm like, wow, I totally get it. So thank you so much. I can't thank you enough.
You're welcome.
And I can see that now in my own life. I'm like, yeah, I've got that shadow side. I mean, we all have. And you're absolutely right. You're not pushing it down. And just what you said, use what life is showing you. What a brilliant mantra almost. You know, it's exactly that, isn't it? It's always there, just what we need.
Always. It's always there. It's always there. And it's not always carried in the light.
Yeah.
The earth is polarized for a reason.
Yeah.
So our job when we come down here as initiates, as spiritual adventurers, is so that we'll remember who we are. We'll remember that we are sparks of source energy in a little skin suit, that we'll remember who we are. Yeah. And so it's being able to navigate polarity here that gives us that spiritual warrior nature.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, the spiritual mystic Jesus, he said, I come bearing peace, but I also come bearing a sword, carrying a sword.
Yeah.
Right? He wasn't here just being all blissy. There was a challenge of polarity, and he said, resist not evil. That means go straight into the shadow. We're not talking out in the outer world. We're talking ourselves right now. This is all about us.
Yeah.
And claim your inner bitch, claim your inner anger, claim your inner selfish nature, claim all of that stuff, because it's real. And if you claim it, you pull it out of the dark where it gets all distorted and twisted and causes problems, and you put it into the light, and it says, all right, my authentic integrated selfish shadow gives me the ability to be sure that my energetic resources are so cared for that all I can do then is overflow, because I've been so authentically selfish that I have so much to give now to people because I've filled myself up first. That's shadow in the light, right? And anger into the light, again, gives you the ability to propel forward. And so I say, suck the marrow out of all of these aspects of yourself, and what is going to happen is 50% of your energetic resources then are going to be freed up to push you, to serve you, to propel you. You won't be so exhausted on the spiritual journey. You won't be stuck in the void. You'll be able to, it will be when you start to access and put yourself in that position point of peace and power at the middle, it acts like the wind on the sail, right? So that pushes you forward out of the in-between, or pushes you forward out of the void. And what also happens is when that starts to happen is you start to become authentically authentic. Right? Like authentically authentic, where, like I say, I told a story and I used some curse words. All right, well, that's how I tell the story. No apologies. That's just, there we go. That's me. Take it or leave it. That's how I am. That's how I teach. And it affects how you coach. It affects your doing. Like I said, the paintings that I paint now, that's because of all of this initiatory work. It's like, who are you really? Who are you really? And then what comes out of me are these universe paintings. Like, oh yeah, there it is.
Wow.
Right? And so that is a result of this initiatory process. And so, look out in the world and go, what makes me angry? And is it okay that I feel that way? Absolutely. Absolutely. What makes me sad? Is it okay that I look at that? Yeah, absolutely. And you stop being a fraud in an effort to perpetuate your spiritual nature. You just get to be real. And people feel that.
Yeah. And I bet that feels nice, because you're not wasting energy, are you, on stuff that doesn't matter and all that. Well, I could sit and talk to you for another hour at least, I think. But we need to draw this to a close. So I just wanted to finish by saying, how can people connect with you and your work and what's coming up? Is
well, they can check me out on my website at www.simonewright.com.
Yeah.
There's and they can go to my fine art website, which is simonewrightfineart.com, where you can see all the star paintings that Julia's talking about. And on my coaching website, there's articles and blogs, and you can reach out to join a class with me. You can connect with me for a clarity session, which is a one-time intuitive session, or you can coach with me where we do deep mystical esoteric coaching that is ongoing as we walk the initiatory path. There's always a class or two coming up. I'll be teaching a class in the fall, initiation, walking the mystical path from self to soul, in probably October. And we record this call. I don't know if it's okay if I mention this, Julia, but we're recording it on the lunar eclipse. Right, August lunar eclipse, and then a solar eclipse coming up in a couple weeks. It's all about shadow and light right now. It's all about it. And so if you come to my website, you'll see where you can start to really deepen your understanding with that. And there's also a Modern Mystics membership there that you can join monthly, where we talk about all of this stuff in an ongoing way as well. So lots of resources on my webpage.
That sounds amazing. I will be checking it out. I don't know about everyone else. That's brilliant. Well, listen, thank you so much. That was really, genuinely, absolutely fascinating, and your story was just wonderful as well. And
my pleasure. My pleasure. We're all on the path, and we need to be able to develop some muscles to walk it, because it's challenging but rewarding. So
it's exciting now, isn't it? I hear that with what you're saying, and I feel that myself. And it's a good time to be alive. So
it is. Yeah. It is.
Bring it on.
Exactly. Smack in the middle of it. Bring on the shadow. Come on, right now.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, listen, Simone Wright, thank you again. I've really, really enjoyed having you part of the summit. Thanks.
My pleasure, Julia. Continued success with it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.